Welcome back to CanHammer, everybody. Tonight's read-along, Codex Imperial Knights. Welcome back to CanHammer, everybody, your source for 40k from the Great White North. Today we are reading through the new codex for the Imperial Knights. This came out maybe about a week and a half ago, but I was away on business and I never got around to picking it up, so we're going to have a look at it now. Imperial Knights are an interesting faction. They... in 7th, they were really kind of a gatekeeper army if you were playing against a list of all Imperial Knights. And certainly, as we went into 8th, Knights were in a bad spot because they were 400, 500 points and could literally just be one-shot by any number of things and any number of armies, and so tended to be a waste of points. Couldn't hide them on most people's tables, and so running more than one knight was just a catastrophe. Now, of course, you'll run into lists that can't handle knights at all, but as knights generally dropped out of the competitive meta, you know, those players who owned multiple knights, and there are many of them out there, just kind of left them on the shelf. And then now, I think what we're going to see, the meta before this book was really a lot of hordes, and it still is to some extent, but the knights are going to shake things up a little bit. We're already seen before this super heavy lists, so 3 shadow swords or 3 guard super heavies, or you know, the 2 primarchs and another super heavy, and those lists generally don't win, but they catch a lot of lists cannot handle it. And so in the same way, I think you're going to see people break their knights out of the shelves now, playing 3 to 5 knights in a list, especially now they have little mini knights, those armigers, and then they have the big castellan and valiants. So you're going to see knights on the table. If you go to a tournament, you're going to see a few people running pure knights. And although they will not likely win the tournament, because there's just so many armies and units out there that can just kill knights very easily, you will see lists that will not be able to take on that many super heavies. My own Custodes list included. So you might luck out on a 60 to 80 person tournament to not run into them turn 1, and then they might lose their first game, and then you won't run into them if you win. But it is definitely a matchup that one needs to keep in mind. I think currently they might win a little bit in the first few weeks after the codex is released, as most people's armies are geared towards fighting hordes, but you're going to start seeing people sprinkle in some kind of anti-knight weaponry or unit or strategy going forward, and then you'll probably see knights hopefully not disappear completely, but you'll see the full knight army as a thing of the past. Of course, in Imperial list, there is an option of splashing knights, and I think that though that will still come under the problem of spending too many points on something that can be easily killed. But I guess we'll see. Let's crack open the codex. So it's actually a decent size. It's one of the thinner books, but it's not as thin as, say, Harlequins or Custodes. It is, in fact, 120 pages. And let's see if the 2/3 thing holds true. And yeah, so page 90, everything starts on page 90. All right, so let's have a look. So keywords, so Questor, Allegiance, and Household are the keywords. So Questor, Allegiance, all Imperial Knights have the Questor Allegiance keyword. Yep. And then some of them have Questor Mechanicus or Questor Imperialis. Okay, no problem. So Questor Allegiance is like the house, is like their main keyword. Cool. And then the household, except for free blades, all Imperial Knights belong to a household. So this is like the chapter, I guess. And then so you have to pick your household. Okay. And I think this is where the Forge World Knights need an FAQ, because I don't believe that they have all of these keywords, and so they cannot be just splashed in place of a non-Forge World Knight from this book. So I'm sure they'll FAQ it at some point, probably in the 2-week FAQ. So for example, if you had a Knight Preceptor in your army that was a Questor Mechanicus, you could then decide it was from House Raven. The household would be changed to House Raven, and its mentor ability would say reroll hit rolls of 1 for House Raven Armor class. Okay. You can instead nominate any Imperial Knight to be a Freeblade, regardless of whether it owes its allegiance to Imperium or Mechanicus. If you do so, replace household keyword with Freeblade. Okay, so Imperial Knights War Gear lists. Many of the units will find reference to the Carapace weapons. The Carapace weapons are these. Okay, so here are the Armigers, and the Warglaives are the ones that came out in the Forgebane box, and these were basically just the one with the chain cleaver and the thermal spear. And so we've seen that before, but now we have this new Armiger Helverin. And just to remind people, so the Armiger is the little mini knights. They move 14 inches, so they're very fast. Hits on 3s across the board as usual. They're only strength 6, they're toughness 7 with 12 wounds, so there's a little bit, just 1 wound more than trying to kill a predator tank, basically. 4 attacks, and a 5-up invuln shield against ranged weapons. And they're a squadron, of course, so you can place them down in up to groups of 3, and then they split up from there, so kind of lower your drops. Not like you're going to need to lower your drops in a knight list. And so this has the Armiger autocannon, which is a 60-inch heavy 2d3 3 damage autocannon, basically. And it's heavy, but it ignores the penalty for moving and firing. So that's pretty sweet. So this thing can move 14 inches, and it can shoot 60 inches, so that gives it a effective table long threat range, 2d3 shots. So let's say 4 shots at strength 7 -1, 3 damage each. It's going to do some damage. And of course, you can replace the stubber with a melt gun, so melt gun being pretty short range. So that's pretty good. So I think they definitely have a role. These are of course super heavies, so so they do have a role, especially this shooty guy I think is way better than this other dude, which is 30-inch range Melta. Certainly that would be the one I'm looking at taking if I was going to take those dudes. I have Forgebane Armigers, which I have yet to assemble. I'd have to get the other weapons though, but could certainly be done. So the Knight Preceptor, I believe this is a new kind of knight. Knight Preceptor. I've got the old index here, just kind of looking up the knights, but I don't believe the Preceptor was a type of knight before. Yeah, no, it was not. So the Knight Preceptor is a new knight, and of course standard knight, so strength 8, toughness 8, 24 wounds, 3+ save, and a 5-up invuln against range attacks. And super heavy walker. The key now, they've updated the super heavy walker rule to also allow it to fall back and walk over swarms, not just infantry and swarms. So, but of course, remember, this does not allow knights to walk over infantry or anything outside of combat. So you can still ring a knight with a bunch of dudes and it can't walk over it. Of course, it can just attack it and then walk over it, but that's how it is. And knights, of course, when they explode 2d6 inches, doing d6 mortal wounds, so that can hurt. So this knight, the Knight Preceptor, comes with the Reaper Chainsword and the Las Impulsor. Las Impulsor is either 36-inch or 18-inch, 2d6 or d6, 6 -2 d3 damage, or 12 -4 d6 damage. So kind of like super shorter range las cannons. 2d6 shots though. Yeah, that's not bad, but you know, 2d6 shots, you could do 10 shots or you could do 3 shots, and then you miss on 1 or 2 of them, so you know, and a d3 damage, so maybe not that great. Okay, Titanic Feet, of course, is what makes knights good in combat. because they're strength 8 minus 2 d3 damage. So the mentor rule. Mentor, reroll hit rolls of 1 for friendly household armiger units within 6 inches of this model. So this gives you hit rolls of 1 for armigers, which is pretty sweet, because then this thing is hitting on 3 rerolling ones. Pretty nice. Okay, so there's your Knight Preceptor. That kind of sets this guy up as like the knight with the 2 armigers, but we'll see. So Knight Paladin, I don't believe any of the other knights have changed except for their costs, which we'll go over, and the small change to the super heavy walker rules. So of course you have your Paladin, which is the battle cannon and the chainsword. You have your Errant, which is the thermal cannon and the chainsword. You have your Gallant, which is the chainsword and the gauntlet. And you have the Knight Warden, which of course is the Avenger Gatling cannon and the chain sword. The Avenger Gatling cannon hasn't changed, still heavy 12, 6 minus 2, 2. And then you have your Crusader, which is the battle cannon and the Gatling cannon. Alright, let's go over this. Canis Rex. So Canis Rex is a special character Imperial Knight. I think it with the dude inside. I think there's a model for it as well. It's here. This is Canis Rex, which I think is being sold as a model. Yeah, because it comes with the dude, Sir Hector, who can dismount from it, and it goes inside the model, and then it comes with this special weapon here, which we're going to look at. So Canis Rex is actually has a character keyword. Pretty cool. So his movement is 12 inches. He hits on 2s. Otherwise, he has a knight's profile. He's equipped with the Laz Impulsor, Multi-Laser, Freedom's Hand, and Titanic Feet. Okay, so that's a Laz Impulsor. This pointy Laz cannon, Laz gun looking gun. Where did it go? Anyway, so we already talked about the Laz Impulsor. The Freedom's Hand is basically the special Thunderstrike Gauntlet, so it's strength times 2, so strength 16 minus 4, 2d6 damage, whereas the Thunderstrike Gauntlet normally is just straight 6 damage. So again, potential to do a lot more. Average will do more than 6 damage, but sometimes will whiff. When attacking with this weapon, subtract 1 from the hit roll, so hitting on 3s. Any damage roll less than 6 made with this weapon is 6. Okay, so this is automatically better than a Thunderstrike Gauntlet, because it automatically does 6 regardless, and could do more. If you slay a vehicle or monster, pick an enemy unit within 9 inches and roll a d6. On the 4+ suffers d3 mortals. Okay, so this guy has a 5+ invuln save against ranged. Sir Hector, if Canis Rex is reduced to 0 wounds and does not explode, Sir Hector sets up within 3 inches of it. He is treated as a passenger disembarking from a transport. He then uses his own profile and own keywords as above. So, and then this knight doesn't count as slain until Sir Hector is also slain, and of course he's a character. Roll a d6 each time a friendly Imperium model flees whilst within 6 inches of Canis Rex. On a 6 it does not flee. Interesting. And then of course he has super heavy walker rule. Okay, so yeah, we'll see what his points values are. Basically you're getting an upgrade to the Thunderstrike Gauntlet and to his ballistic skill and weapon skill. Okay, here's one of the new big boys, the Knight Castellan. So he only moves 10, so these bigger guys move less. They are hitting on 3s shooting and only 4s in combat, so they don't fight as well as to shoot. Or this is the Knight Castellan, maybe the other guy does. Strength 8, toughness 8, 4 more wounds than a normal knight, but otherwise exactly the same with a 5+ invuln. So you're getting basically a knight with 4 extra wounds, but a lot more weapons. This thing comes with the Plasma Decimator, Volcano Lance, 2 Shieldbreaker missiles, 2 twin multiguns, 2 twin Siegebreaker cannons, and Titanic Feet. Wow, it's a lot of guns. So the Plasma Decimator is 48-inch plasma, 2d6 shots, 8-3-2. So similar, so pretty much normal plasma, but 2d6 shots and 48-inch range. And it takes a mortal for every time you roll a 1. So So there you go. With the 4 extra wounds, you don't degrade until you lose 15. So that's not too bad, rather than just losing 12. So extra crazy plasma gun. Again, though, can shoot 10 shots or could shoot 3 shots, in which case you paid a lot for basically a plasma cannon. Shield breaker missiles, 48 inches, 1 shot. Each missile can only be fired once per battle, and will fire 1 per turn, and it ignores invuln saves. So it's 10 minus 4, so nobody's going to get a save basically, and d6 damage. So it's going maybe kill something. And the Siegebreaker cannons are heavy 2d3, 7 minus 1 d3 damage. Okay, not super great. Twin melta guns, obviously. Volcano Lance, of course, is d6 shots, strength 14 minus 5, 3d3 damage, and reroll failed wound rolls targeting Titanic units. So this is doing kind of reliably 5 or 6 damage, up to 9 damage on a hit with d6 shots. So that's probably, you know, I would probably take 3d3 over 2d6 damage, probably. I'd rather take just a straight 6, to be honest, but there you go. And then Titanic Feet. Dual plasma core explosion. So it's reduced to 0 wounds. Roll 2d6. If you roll 6 on either dice, it explodes. 2d6 range, d6 mortal wounds. If you roll a 6 on both dice, each unit within 3d6 suffers d6 mortal wounds. Cool. And super model heavy walker. Okay. There you go. And its partner is the Knight Valiant. The Knight Valiant, of course, is okay. So he's also just 4+ to hit on in combat. He has the Thunder Coil Harpoon, the Conflagration Cannon, twin Siegebreaker cannons, 2 twin melta guns, and 4 Shieldbreaker missiles. So he has 2 extra missiles. And this Conflagration Cannon is a 18-inch flamer that 3d6, 7 minus 2, 2. So that is pretty powerful. I think that's probably more powerful than the Yavara's gun. But the Yavara's does do straight 3 damage at minus 3 AP. So man, Yavara's is probably still stronger. But that's pretty scary. Charging this thing is scary. And then, of course, it has the infamous now Thunder Coil Harpoon. So this thing is 1 shot, 12-inch range, rerolled failed hit rolls when targeting vehicles or monsters. It's strength 16, so it's going to be wounding a knight or almost every super heavy on a 2. Minus 6, so no save except for invuln save, and 10 damage. You read that right. Thunder Coil Harpoon, 10 damage. Straight. That's crazy. That is the most damage any single weapon does in the game so far. 10 straight up damage. Wow. And if this weapon inflicts any damage, then the unit suffers an additional d3 mortal wounds. So 10 plus d3 mortal wounds. That is crazy. Otherwise has the same rules as the Castellan. So that is definitely something. Of course, you know, hitting on 3s, you could miss. You could roll that 1 for the wound roll, in which case it would still not wound. Yeah. Interesting. Alright, what is this? Sacristan Forged Shrine. So this is a fortification. After it's set up, it's treated as a Sector Mechanicus terrain feature, cannot move, blah, blah, blah. Unless they can fly, vehicles, monsters can only be set up at the end of their move on the ground floor. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Infantry, they got cover, okay. Auto Sacristan. At the end of your movement phase, 1 Imperial Knight that is within 1 inch of this model and can use the Auto Sacristan. If it does so, cannot shoot or charge, and attacks are reduced to 1, but you can do one of the following. Repair d3 lost wounds. Straight 3 if there's a Tech Priest or Tech Marine nearby as well. Reload, so you can regain all your shield breaker missiles other than heirlooms. Interesting. Or if you still have your shield breakers, or you just choose not to do that, you can automatically make maximum number of hits with your next vehicle. You choose a weapon, and the next time you fire, you automatically hit max number of times. And refueling, so include the move characteristic by 6 inches. Interesting. We'll see how many points that is, but that's interesting. I like it. Okay, there we go. Not very many models, as you can imagine, but look at this picture. Look at all the knights. Okay, now let's see what the knights get. So Imperial Knights, other than those in a super heavy auxiliary detachment. Okay, so just splashing one knight gains none of these things. So, Knight Lances. If your army is battle forged, select one model in each Imperial Knight Super Heavy detachment. Each model you selected gains the character keyword. However, the command benefit of each Imperial Knight Super Heavy detachment is changed to none unless it contains any combination of at least 3 Questorus class or Dominus class units. So Questorus class are just your normal knights, and Dominus class are your big dudes. But your Armigers are not, they are not Questorus, they're Armiger class. So if you splash your Armigers, you're going to lose all your command benefits. So that is definitely not encouraging people to use Armigers. Household traditions. If your army is battle forged, all units in the Imperial Knight Super Heavy detachment other than Free Blades must be from the same household, but they will all gain a household tradition. The household tradition gain depends on the household they were drawn from, blah blah blah. If you've chosen a Questor Imperialis household that does not have an associated base, okay. So if you're running 3 knights in your Super Heavy detachment, they all have to be the same house. You can't splash one from each house. Okay, that's a restriction. I guess that makes sense to kind of restrict it a little bit. You don't want knights to get too crazy. Free Blades. So Free Blades does not prevent other units from getting a household tradition, but the Free Blade can never use themselves. Makes sense. Okay, household traditions for Questor Imperialis. House Terran. Determining the distance a unit with this household tradition advances or charge, roll an additional d6 and discard the lowest result. That's pretty sweet, charging 3d6 and discarding the lowest. Glory of the charge. Add 1 to the attack characteristics of a model with this tradition during any turn in which it charged or performed a heroic intervention. A model with this tradition can perform heroic interventions as well. Not too bad, I guess. Oath Keepers. Models with this household tradition double the number of wounds they have remaining for the purposes of determining what characteristics to use. I like that. That makes knights last a lot longer. House Cadmus. Reroll wound rolls of 1 in the fight phase made by models with this tradition against units which only contain models with the wound characteristic of 12 or less. Okay, you probably don't need to do that though, but anyway. Close Quarter Killers. Add 1 to hit rolls in the fight phase for attacks made by a model with this household tradition during any turn in which it charged, was charged, or performed a heroic intervention. Add 1 to the hit roll, so hitting on 2s. Questor Mechanicus, House Raven. Models with this household tradition do not suffer the penalty for hit rolls for advancing and firing assault weapons. Furthermore, during a turn in which a unit with this household tradition advances, all its heavy weapons are treated as assault. Okay. House Tyrannus. Roll a dice each time a model with this household tradition loses a wound, unless that wound was lost because of a mortal, so it's a 6+. Feel no pain except against mortals. House Krast, which of course might be good for knights. Cold Fury, House Krast. You can reroll failed hit rolls in the fight phase for a model during any turn in which it would charge, blah blah blah. In addition, reroll all failed hit rolls in the fight phase for a model against Titanic units. And House Vulker, reroll hit rolls of 1 for a model of this tradition whenever resolving an attack with a ranged weapon that is targeting the closest enemy unit. Okay, I think probably overall the charge one, extra dice, charging and advancing, is pretty good, and reroll hit rolls probably decent, because there doesn't seem to be any built-in ability or auras for them to reroll hit rolls except for the Armigers. So Or this one with the weapons, I guess. But those are all fight phase, they're not shooting. So, yeah, I guess they want knights to fight. Alright, stratagem. So, Ion Aegis. Use this at the start of your opponent's movement phase. Choose a Dominus class knight, so those are the big ones. Cannot move until the end of his next turn. But Imperium units have a 5+ invuln save against ranged weapons while they're wholly within 6 inches. So it's like a 5+ invuln bubble for 2 CP. Noble Sacrifice. If it's an Armorer class or Questoris class model, explodes on a 4+. If it's a Dominus, it explodes if either roll is a 4+. If both rolls are 4+, then all units. So that's 2 CP to increase your chance of exploding to 50%, which could be nice. Because you could do a lot of damage, D6 mortals all around. Thunder Stomp. Use this stratagem immediately after fighting with an Imperial Knights model. Choose an enemy infantry or swarm unit within 1 inch of that model and roll a dice on 4+ for D3 mortals, so an extra D3 mortals. Sky Reaper. Use this for your Armiger Helverin against the unit that flies. Reroll failed hit rolls. I like that. Of course, the Sky Reaper cannon is the big cannon that sits on top of the Mastodon. Rotate Ion Shield, so we heard that one before. When an enemy targets a knight, then a unit from your army that has an invul save, or it's 3 CPs if it's a Dominus class unit, then you get invuln improved by 1. So that will bring you to a 4+ invuln with Rotate Ion Shields, which is pretty nice, but that'll cost you 3 CP on the Dominus class. Heirlooms, there's your relic one. Exalted Court. So use this stratagem before the battle. After you have chosen your warlord, choose 1 Questoris or Dominus class model for 1 CP, or 2 models for 3 CP. Each model you choose gains character, and you can choose a warlord trait for them. And all of the Imperial Knights warlord traits must be different, and no model can have more than 1. Cool. Pack Hunters. Use the stratagem after Armiger Warglaive from your army is charged. Until the end of the phase, reroll failed charge rolls for friendly Armiger Warglaives within 12 inches. Okay. Oathbreaker Guidance System for 2 CP. Choose a target for a shield breaker missile. You can target something that's not visible and can target characters. And I'll remind people that the shield breaker missile is this thing. Heavy 1, strength 10, -4 D6. With no invuln saves, i.e. dead character that's also invisible at 48-inch range. So for 2 CP, you can probably auto-kill a character unless you roll a 1 or 2 on your D6. That's pretty sweet. 2 CP for full tilt. In the charge phase, choose a knight and can declare a charge even if it advanced. So a bit of a surprise charge. So your knights can move pretty fast. 2 CP. Now, if we're talking, there's a lot of CPs flying around here. If you're going to give your guys warlord traits and heirlooms, and you're thinking of doing ion shields every turn, at least on 1 guy, and you're thinking of killing some characters, you're going to need a whole bunch of CP, and you don't get a lot from super heavy detachments. I think we're going to see people running guard with knights. Iron, Hail Heavy Stubbers, okay, whatever, Heavy Stubbers. Devastating Reach. Use this stratagem in your charge phase. Choose a knight that has not yet charged, then choose 1 enemy unit that is entirely on runes or sector mechanicus structure. If your model, blah, blah, blah. The charge is successful, you can make close combat attacks in a 5 phase. Okay, whatever. The enemy has to be on runes or sector mechanicus for this to actually work. But I think what it's allowing you to do is you can end within 2 inches horizontally and 6 inches vertically and still attack. So this is a stratagem to help knights kill things in ruins, which everybody else can't, because they can't charge things that taking up all the ruins now. So I guess we're not going to see that rune rule changed then, or FAQ'd, because there's a stratagem they wrote specifically to help knights deal with that. So there you go. Chain Sweep. Use the stratagem immediately after fighting with a Reaper Chainsword, Ravager, or Honor's Bite. Roll a d6 for each enemy model within 3 inches of that model. Suffer a mortal wound. Okay. Death Grip. This is what I like. So for 1 CP, immediately after fighting with a knight that has a Thunderstrike Gauntlet, so you have to get one with a Thunderstrike Gauntlet, or one of these relics, resolve an attack action with that weapon against an enemy unit within 1 inch that consists of a single model. So you can't use it to... so just kind of singling out characters. If the attack hits, the enemy model suffers D3 mortal wounds and is caught in a death grip. Roll off, adding your strength, and knights are strength 8, remember. If your opponent result equals or exceeds yours, it breaks free. Otherwise, it suffers another D3, and you keep doing it until you fail to do it, which is awesome. Really, really cool. It's like, it's really, really cool. Your average character is not going to have enough, but this would be great on like Magnus or Mortarion, because, yeah, although they have higher strength, so you have to roll well, but this is just like, very cool. And but, you know, the other thing is you actually have to hit with that weapon too, so, you know, there's a chance that this fluffs. 1 CP. Bonded Oathsman. Quester class or Dominus class. All friendly armigers can heroically intervene, like characters. Okay, Valiant Last Stand. When a knight is reduced to 0 wounds but did not explode, you can immediately shoot or fight as if for 2 CPs, assuming they have 1 wound left. Benevolence of the Machine God. Use this stratagem when a knight model suffers a mortal wound. On a 5-up, it is ignored. Okay. Machine Spirit Resurgent. Use this stratagem at the start of any turn. Pick a Mechanicus unit. Use the top row, regardless of how many wounds left. So I like that stratagem a lot. Cognus Heavy Stubbers. Okay, whatever, Heavy Stubbers. Sally Forth for 3 CP. Send 1 Questor's class or Armiger class unit to outflank the enemy. It can outflank within 6 inches of an edge, 9 inches away. Yeah, and so obviously turn 2 onwards. You can only use that once for 3 CP. Slayer of Shadows. This is for House Mortan. The unit ignores all modifiers when making its attack. House Terran for 3 CPs. You can fight again. And House Terran, just remember, House Terran allows you to, oh yeah, that's the Feel No Pain. Okay, doesn't seem to synergize particularly. Order of Companions for House Raven. At the start of your shooting phase, pick a House Raven. Reroll all rolls of 1 for that model. Includes hit rolls, wound rolls, and damage rolls, and rolls made to determine number of shots for 2 CPs. Darkest Hour for 2 CPs. House Tyrannus. Use this when House Tyrannus model is reduced to 0 wounds but did not explode. Roll a d6 on a 4+. Set the model up again at the end of the phase as close as possible with d3 wounds remaining. Whoa. Okay. That's hardcore, considering you're setting up a knight. But there you go. And then you could run it as its top profile for another CP. So that could be pretty sweet. At the end of the phase. Okay. Saturation Bombardment. House Volker. Until the end of phase, unmodified hit rolls of 6. Score 2 hits instead of 1. Dragon Slayer House Griffith. Add 1 to wound rolls against units containing wounds characteristic of 10 or more. Okay, it's pretty cool. Control Aggression House Crass. Use this stratagem in the fight phase before choosing. Until the end of the phase, unmodified hit rolls of 6. Score 2 hits instead of 1, or 3 hits instead of 1 if the target is Chaos. There we go. Bio Scryer Cogitator for House Cadmus. Use this stratagem immediately after your opponent set up a unit that is arriving on the battlefield within 12 inches. Okay, Interceptor for 3 CP. Staunch Allies. Use this stratagem immediately after an enemy unit declares a charge against an Imperium unit from your army. Choose a friendly House Hawkshroud model within 1 inches from any enemy units and within 12 that's more than 1 inch. Okay, so not engaged basically, and 12 inches from the unit that is the target of the charge, that model fires Overwatch. If the model resulting charge is successful, the model can perform heroic intervention as if it was a character. If it does so, you can move up to 2d6 inches, but must end this move closer to the unit that charged and cannot move. Okay, so basically it's a stooping dive for knights, but also allows Overwatch, which is pretty sweet. I wish stooping dive would allow Overwatch, but it's basically a stooping dive for Imperial Knights for 2CP with the Overwatch, which is pretty sweet. Warlord traits. So Cunning Commander, again, this is your CP regeneration. Oh no, it's not. Once per battle you get the reroll, and then you just get a 1 command point bonus for having this. Okay. Ion Bulwark. Warlord has a 4+ invuln instead of 5 up, and so that other stratagem, Rotate Ion Shields, would now give it a 3 up invuln, which is pretty sweet. Now if you just splash one guy, so if you just splash one Dominus class, you don't get all this stuff, because it says here, excluding super heavy auxiliary detachments. However, for the stratagems, if your army is battle-forged and includes any Imperial Knights detachments, you have access to the stratagems. So you could splash a Dominus class, spend a CP to give it a Warlord trait of Ion Bulwark, so now your Dominus class is a 4-up invuln, and then spend a CP every turn for Rotate Ion Shields to bring it up to a 2-up, a 3-up save, 2-up save, 3-up save, hopefully 2-up save. No, these guys are still only 3-up save. Oh, that sucks. Okay, so 3-up save with a 3-up invuln. It's still pretty good to have that dude with a 3-up invuln. Pretty interesting. Add 1 attack to your Warlord. Land Strider, add 2 to all advance and charge rolls within 6 inches of your Warlord. That's not bad. Blessed by the Sacristan. Choose 1 weapon, not the heirloom. And if you make a modified roll of 6, you suffer a mortal wound. And leadership debuff. Okay. And there's some household Warlord traits. House Terran, reroll failed charge rolls. Griffith, immediately after charge, D3 mortal wounds. Hawk Shroud at the start of the first battle round, but before the first one begins, select 1 unit from your opponent's army, add 1 to hit rolls. Cadmus, reduce all damage suffered by a Warlord in the fight phase by 1. Legacy, Mortan, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks that target your Warlord at a range of 18 inches or more. Raven, add 1 to saving throws for your Warlord against attacks that have an AP characteristic of -1. Tyrannus, each time you make a wound roll of 6, AP is improved. Reroll hit rolls of 1 is Crast, and Volker is wound rolls of 1, 2, or 3 made for attacks against your Warlord always fail, even if the attack has a strength characteristic higher. Well, that's pretty nice. Okay, but really I think you're taking this extra invuln. Pretty sweet. Depending on your list, I guess. Heirlooms, okay. So this Sanctuary Heirloom gives a 5-up invuln across the board. Ravager is a chainsword, yeah, which does straight 6 damage and rerolls hit rolls of 1. Not bad. How much damage does the chainsword normally do? Chainsword normally does straight 6 damage. Okay, so it's strength 8 -4 instead of strength plus 6 -3. So probably not worth it. Paragon Gauntlet is replaces the Thunderstrike Gauntlet. Armor of the Saints. So this armor gives a knight its 2+ armor save. I can't believe it doesn't have a 2+ armor save. I always thought that was weird against for knights. Gatling Cannon that does 14 shots, and it's not bad. Judgment, Storm Spear, Rocket Pod, Sky Shield, Helm of the Nameless Warrior, add 1 to hit rolls made for the wearer's attacks in the fight phase. Banner of Macarius Triumphant. This is interesting. So add 1 to the leadership characteristic for all Imperium units within 6 inches of this knight. In addition, if the bearer is within range of an objective marker, it controls that marker even if there are more enemy models within the same range, so it gains objective secured. If an enemy unit within range of the same objective marker has a similar ability, then this model counts as 10 models. Interesting. So just helps you hold some objectives. All right. Oh, that's a lot of, wow, that's a lot of relics. Each house has its own relic. Mark of the Omnissiah, D3 Lost Wounds, okay, Helm Dominatus. Let's see what's good here. Plasma Decimator, that brings it to strength 9, 3 damage, it's pretty sweet. Thunder of Voltora, so I thought it said Voltron for a minute there. Rapid Fire Battle Cannon becomes strength 9, minus 2 D3. Mark of the Lance. Four plus save against mortal wounds in the psychic phase. Ignore cover. Reaper Chainsword. Banner in Violet. Reroll hit rolls of 1 in the fight phase for House Raven models. Fury of Mars, Thermal Cannon, Headsman's Mark. Increased damage characteristic of weapons by 1 for attacks made against enemy units. Okay, Auric Mask. Okay, so no CP regens. Free blade qualities and burdens. Interesting. Okay, so if your army is battle forged, before the battle you can give 1 free blade model, a detachment, in each detachment qualities and burdens. To do so, either choose a single quality or roll d6, blah blah blah. If your Battlefield army includes Canis Rex, both Canis Rex and Sir Hector have the legendary hero and last of their line qualities. After determining the model's qualities, you must then either choose 2 burdens or roll a d6 to generate a burden. If your Battleforged army includes Canis Rex, both blah 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 have the Obsessed with Vengeance burden. If a free blade from your army has any burdens, roll 2d6 for them at the start of each of your turns, subtracting 1 from the result if the free blade has the Exiled and Shame burden. If the result is less than the free blade's leadership, their burdens do not apply. If the result equal or exceeds the leadership, then their burdens apply. Oh, so it's not even always going to be there. So let's see. So these are the qualities. Last of the line. Reroll hit rolls of 1 against units containing 10 or more models. Sworn to a quest. Reroll hit rolls of 1 when targets enemy warlord, and it gets obsec. Mysterious Guardian. Free blade can perform heroic intervention like a character within 6 inches. Peerless Warrior. When this quality is chosen or generated, roll a d6. Improves its move, weapon skill, or ballistic skill. Pretty cool. Indomitable. Add 1 to this free blade's wounds and leadership characteristics. So yeah, so you can pick one or you can roll 2d6 and to randomly generate it to get 2 qualities. So that's cool. But then it's a penalty for the burdens. Okay, anyway, let's go to the burdens. Exiled and Shane. Free blade cannot be affected by any stratagems, including the command reroll stratagem. Nice. Weary Machine Spirit. While this burden applies, halve the number of wounds the free blade has for determining characteristics. That's hardcore. Haunted by Failure. While this burden applies, reroll hit rolls of 6 for the free blade. Okay. Obsessed with Vengeance. While this burden applies, the free blade can only target the nearest enemy unit that is visible to it in the shooting phase and declare a charge against the nearest enemy unit. Driven to Slaughter. While this burden applies, the free blade cannot fall back and its ballistic skill is changed to 6+. Impetuous Nature. While this burden applies, every move that the free blade makes must take it closer to the nearest enemy model unless it is already within 1 inches of an enemy unit, and then it has to declare a charge against every enemy unit within 12 inches. I don't know if it's worth running free blades, guys, because of this page right here. Some of these are pretty punitive. Okay, let's look at points. Got me my old index here. All right. So the Reaper Chain Cleaver, which is a new weapon, I guess, is 0 points. Fine. Reaper Chainsword is 30 still. Thunderstrike Gauntlet still 35, and you get your feat for free. Gatling Cannon, Armiger Autocannon is free. The Gatling Cannon went from 95 to 75, which is great. Conflagration Cannon is free. Heavy Flamer, blah blah. Iron Storm Missile Pod 16, same. Multi-guns, multi-lasers. Plasma Decimator is free. So most of the big Knights weapons are free so far. Rapid Fire Battle Cannon is 100, and that comes down from, nope, same, 100. So not worth it. Shieldbreaker missiles are 12 each. It's very cheap. Storm Spear Rocket Pod 45. The Thermal Cannon is 76, same as before. Thermal Spear is free. Thunder Coil Harpoon is free. Icarus Autocannons are the same. Siegebreaker Cannons are 35. And Volcano Lance is free. So a lot of the new weapons are free. The Armiger, Shooty Armiger is 170, and the Melee Armiger is 160, which kind of puts them on par with a decently armed Dreadnought or Predator with a bunch of weapons on it. So yeah, the Knight Castellan is 510. So if you take the Knight Castellan, you add on a couple of those missiles, so that's 24, so now it becomes 534. Then you have to add on the, what else does it have? The Plasma, which is free, Twin Siegebreaker Cannons, and it has 2 of them, I think, so that's another 70. So 600 something points at the minimum. And the Valiant is 500, so only 10 points cheaper. So those things are 600 points for the big Knights. Now the little Knights, the normal Knights have gone down, I think. Crusaders 320, so now it's 285. So the Crusader has gone down 35 points. In fact, all the Knights have gone down 35 points, which is pretty awesome. And the Knight Preceptor, which is the guy that gives you the reroll hit rolls to the Armigers, is 385, which I think is probably way too expensive. And then you have to add the something to it, right? The Las Impulsor, which is free. Okay, so still an extra 100 points just for the rerolls on the Armiger is probably not worth the Knight Preceptor. The big dudes are probably worth it, and the other Knights are more worth it now because they're cheaper. And the Sacristan Forge Shrine is 80 points. Totally not worth it. Canis Rex is 450, which is too much. Yeah, it doesn't bring enough to warrant that point value. And that's it. So, interesting book. Very interesting. My impression doesn't change. I think certain armies will struggle against an army of knights. They certainly have a lot more tools and are a lot harder to kill now, with one knight possibly being 4+ or 3+ invuln. So I think there's still going to be a spoiler army, or an anti-meta army, or a gatekeeper army, whatever you want to call it. I think they may win an event or two right at the beginning, but then people will wisen up and start bringing their anti-knight weaponry and anti-knight models again. And maybe they'll disappear, or maybe they'll just stay around as a not so popular, 3 or 4 people in a large event sort of thing. But I hope you enjoyed that read along. Do like the video below, and consider subscribing to the channel. And if you like what we do here, please consider supporting us on Patreon by clicking on the symbol up there. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and we'll catch you next time. And just so you know, AOS will be returning to the channel with the new Soul Wars AOS Edition 2. I hope to be bringing my Flesh Eaters out of retirement, as well as adding on a Night Haunt army. And so hopefully we'll be starting to get some bat reps and things in as well with all that stuff. So do stay tuned to the channel for more AOS. Thank you for watching.